Matt, AJ. I'm Justin. I live here in Denver. It's really cool to have you guys.
Thank you for coming and taking the time to talk to us.
This is my place, actually.
We're at FedEx and something else.
Yes, this is it.
Kinko's. Oh, they're not Kinko's anymore. They're just FedEx Office. Sorry.
Did FedEx buy Kinko's?
I think the branding is now FedEx Office.
Yeah, pretty sure.
I think it is.
I remember there was a point where, this is a long time ago, where I saw these things for FedEx, and I was like, whatever happened to Federal Express?
Right. Well, they have that cool logo.
The arrow.
You know how long it took me to realize that logo is like the negative space?
Yeah.
And then once you realize it's the negative space, you can never not see it.
It's the first thing you look for. I'm staring at it right now.
Yeah, it's a trap.
Yeah.
Enough about FedEx. Sorry.
No, I understand. That's
My
really
perch.
cool. So you guys work for Bethesda.
We do.
How long have you guys been?
I've been there, it'll be 11 years in April.
It'll be 6 years in February for me. 6 years.
And how did you get your start?
So I guess 2007. Before I moved to DC when I was in college at University of Michigan, I did video game reviews. That was kind of the thing. My brother was a sports writer, and I'd always hang out with them. And they were like, you could probably get free video games if you just made the contacts and reach out to people, and because he had been there for a couple of years ahead of me and knew that the video game guy had left, so I did that, and for a while I did freelance game reviews for various sites and stuff. And as I moved to DC, I took a marketing internship for the national parks, which had nothing to do with games, obviously, but that then transitioned to a marketing agency that worked with a lot of gaming clients. So I had clients like
closer to what you wanted.
Yeah, close-ish, but I still didn't know where I was going. So I had like movie and game clients like BioShock and Darkness were two that I was helping doing research on, and I knew enough about Bethesda, but not a ton. So then a friend of mine that I worked with recommended me for a position, and interviewed, got the job. First day, I met Todd Howard and
Who?
Todd Howard, and we were going over.
Tell us who Todd Howard is.
He's the game director for Bethesda Game Studios, and he goes, "Oh, hi, Meat Shield," because we were about to start the marketing campaign for Fallout 3.
Okay.
About, I think, like 18 months before the game came out. It was a long campaign, and I've worked on Fallout, Skyrim. Over the years, I've now kind of been the community lead for all Bethesda titles, but now we're at a point where we're getting more games and our team's growing, and I lead that team.
That's awesome. Started from the bottom and
Now, up in the altitude.
That's right.
Yeah.
Cool. What about you?
So I actually did do a little bit of like freelance stuff for video game review sites way back in the day, way back in the day. And then my background was actually in like retail and then HR. So I worked for Best Buy for 8 years doing HR and operations. And I played an online game, an MMO called Rift. Never heard of it. With a buddy of mine who we were just talking, and I didn't know he actually worked in the industry. He worked for Sony. I don't know if you know the story. And so he was just like, "Hey man, you seem like a good guy, why don't you work in games?" And you never put two and two together. You're like, oh, you have to code and you have to do this. Like, you never think of the operational stuff, right? So he got me in touch with a recruiter. She was like, I'll help you as much as I can. So this was the first job I applied for it, and I applied for a customer support trainer, because we did a lot of training and onboarding at Best Buy, obviously, being an operations manager. And that role was really designed to both train customer service agents, but it was also like internal marketing. So that was specifically hired for ESO, before ESO was actually announced. And we did all the internal...
ESO?
The Elder Scrolls Online.
Very nice.
That was...
ESO.
The Elder Scrolls Online. Tamriel Unlimited.
This is a good team.
Yeah. And so that was... That's right. Yeah, so we did a lot of internal marketing. So if there were new patches coming out, we talked about the agents. There were new initiatives. There were new things that we were focusing on. So we did a lot of like internal videos and promotions, and it was really marketing to the 2,500 agents we had working with CS.
Okay.
And so then the manager at the time of marketing, his name was Steve, he approached one of the people that was involved in that, like, hey, do you have anyone that'd be a good brand manager that does a lot of stuff in his marketing sense? And he recommended me. I had lunch with Steve, and here I am.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I started as an associate brand manager on Elder Scrolls Online, and then we worked on Legends for a little bit of time, and then I moved back to ESO, and then I did
Elder Scrolls Online and the Evil Within.
And the Evil Within 2, and then back to Legends. So I was kind of one of the only, not only, started with the live games, because we're always learning about that, right? Bethesda.net's still getting off the ground, and we used to just do traditional box titles. So Steve was like, hey, do you want to help on all these things? They're all kind of the online games, and that's what I normally play and love. So I was like, sure, sounds great, let's do it. So hopping back and forth and being part of all those games is good, and here I am now doing Legends.
So you both translated your love of games into...
You could do it.
You can do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you tell somebody who wants your job, who's 18 years old, playing Legends at home right now?
It's funny because I think that the biggest thing is just never give up.
Yeah.
And the industry is hard to break into. Like there's no lie about that. It's difficult to get an idea in front of somebody, but it helps when you do stuff like you do, or like a lot of Legends content creators do, where they make guides for the game, or they make videos for the games, right? Because you're doing and you're making that content. But it is a hard industry to break into because a lot of people move around, but it's all about resilience. I mean, I was lucky enough that the first one I applied for, I got it. Same with you, it sounds like. But everyone else I know, it was just like, hey, I applied multiple times, I did this. And I don't think one person has the story of just being like, oh, I fell into this. It's always been like, I did this, or I wrote reviews, or I made content, or I designed a level. Like, there were a lot of things you could show just as a hobby. So,
I think, I mean, we both work in the marketing department, so I could tell you should be a marketing major or a PR major, or, you know, as we go with these things, who knows before there's like community relations, like studies that you're doing. And well, I guess to some extent, I bet some of my classes I could classify as that. But be close to the industry. Find out, you know, whether it's you mod games or you're on Twitch or
speak the language.
You speak the language. I mean, I've got. I think you mentioned QA. That's a big entry point. A lot of people get into the industry from. A few of the folks on my team started in QA, and they had an interest to go to community management. Others, you know another person really well that's gone from that to he was the lead producer this past year on Skyrim Switch, Skyrim VR, Fallout 4 VR. So again, started from the bottom and move up.
I started my job as a receptionist.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, when I worked retail, I mean, I didn't go in as an operations manager for Best Buy. I was hired as a seasonal Geek Squad agent. So I was hired for 6 months, and then I worked part-time to full-time to manager. So, I mean, it's the grind. It's anywhere.
Makes sense. Okay. So, Elder Scrolls Legends is what I'm most familiar with, the thing that I enjoy the most that Bethesda works with, although I have to admit I've sunk like 300 hours in Skyrim. So I'm curious, how long Elder Scrolls Legends was in development before anybody heard about it, and how the idea started? Like, whose idea was it, and where did it go?
So it's been around for a while. As far as the actual game itself, I mean, the game started a long time ago, back when I first joined the company, and there were different iterations kicking around in terms of what it was, and it just never felt Elder Scrolls enough. It never felt different enough. It never captured the idea of like, this is a world people love with lore and creatures and characters, and translate that into a card game, right? It was kind of like, hey, this is a card game we made, and the game's done. So,
but you obviously knew, like, at some point, let's say Skyrim, you know, people love the franchise, they love the lore, they love the stories, so, you know, it really sets up to have the opportunity to be a multi-genre IP.
Right.
And Pete was the big champion for this. Obviously, Pete plays a lot of the game. Like, that's not a surprise to anybody.
But I know he's a big fan of card games.
Huge fan of card games. And that's actually that's how the game ended up getting made, the game that you're playing now. So, again, kicking around those ideas, like Matt mentioned, Skyrim was a big thing. People wanted to do something like that, but it didn't make sense just to force it, right? So it was kind of on and off, and then one day someone from Direwolf, they're huge Elder Scrolls fans, they knew Pete from playing Magic and
Right.
whatnot, and they said, hey, we have this idea for a card game. I think Pete told the story before. The very first time he ever played Legends, he literally played it with index cards. Like they put index cards down on the table, and that's how they played the game. So it's been around for quite a while, but the iteration we know now is.
Yeah, and you know, like you said, it was kind of around for a while in a conceptual stage. That's not atypical. I believe I might get the date wrong. Todd Vaughn is our vice president of development, so he oversees a lot of production for our games. Dishonored was an idea that he was pushing along, I believe, as early as like 2003, 2004, and it was really, and he had an interest in the guys at Arcade Studios and the games that they were doing, and it just kind of was this slow process of how they started talking, they started dating, then we, you know, I guess we got married.
I was waiting, which one was that?
We acquired the studio, and lo and behold, like, Dishonored's a great franchise now, kind of at a similar path in some way.
That's cool. So you're telling me that I should be on the lookout for
A movie.
Dishonored Legends? Is that where we're going with this?
Dishonored Legends crossover not confirmed, sadly.
Not confirmed, but probably could be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
One of the things, and I mean, we've talked about this before, so it just kind of goes to what you were saying. Like, we'd love to do more crossover stuff on the account side of things, right? So, like, hey, not necessarily saying you're going to see Dishonored or Quake inside the game, but hey, if you've played this, you might see something in Elder Scrolls Online. We did that with the mount that we had.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Or same thing with Quake. Like, maybe there's a cross promotional thing. So that back end we've been building with Bethesda Net allows us to do that. But yeah, no Dishonored inside of Legends anytime soon.
I can appreciate that. Yeah. So, you guys partner with Direwolf Digital. Can you maybe explain what exactly their role is with Elder Scrolls Legends for people who just don't understand what the difference is between Direwolf and Bethesda?
Sure. I mean, Bethesda Softworks is the publisher. Direwolf Digital is the developer. It's always an interesting thing. Neil Gaffer somewhere, and somebody goes, well, that's not a Bethesda game. Bethesda just published it. But from our end, a lot of that is, well, we want to make a game, and we need a studio to make that game, whether it's one of our internal studios or somebody contracted like Direwolf. And it's like, okay, there's budgets and there's planning and there's scheduling, and we're getting them resources. They're providing milestones and delivering the game. So it's a very symbiotic relationship. They kind of both have to come together. There are cases where there's a developer or a publisher that does both kind of together, but to have a team that's focused, you have to pick who you think can make the best game.
Yeah, and to that point too, they don't necessarily work in a silo. So yeah, they are the developer, but I mean, we see features and we talk about that stuff all the time. We meet with them daily and we say, hey, where are we with this? What do we think about this? We shoot around articles to one another, like that stuff again. Although it might be signed Direwolf, and they said, no, sure, it comes from them, but I mean, we're all involved in making the full product and publishing.
You said you guys communicate daily.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Is that close with them?
Yeah, we have daily syncs every day over Slack, and it's the Elder Scrolls, so it's kind of the crown jewel of the Bethesda catalog, and so we know Direwolf knows how to make the type of game, but obviously we have a vested interest in making sure we have people that would check: is this lore consistent? Is this
art consistent?
And have the right tone, and that's carried from. Obviously the stuff that Bethesda Game Studios, they check themselves, but the Elder Scrolls Online and Legends as well. And especially with the ESO guys, it's been so many years that they've been working on it that there's really this comfort level with what they can do with the game and the IP.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Direwolf too. I mean, a lot of that stuff, I mean, there are the checks and balances, but they are fans of the series. Like, this is not just them making this and, well, what can we do here? Like, they know the characters, they know the lore, they know every single province inside and out. So, I mean, that's why they're so good at making those cards and tying them into the game. It doesn't feel like a shoehorned in. It actually feels like it makes sense. The characters, the abilities, the keywords.
There's that passion.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. I want to say in March, I got an email saying, because I had an ESO again a few years ago. I was just thinking about it. I got an email saying, if you're interested in Elder Scrolls, just sign up for the closed beta. I shot a response back, and I got in May that year.
That have been 15?
14.
14? No, okay.
No, it was 15.
It would have been 15. Sorry. Yes, I was thinking when ESO launched, but yep, you're right.
14, I was.
ESO launched in 14.
But, so, I got to participate in the closed beta process for a while. And I know that I talked with Frank Lepore a few months ago about some of the stuff that went on in the alpha that he was involved with. But I'm curious, like, what from your perspective, like, shaping the game's image and hyping it up to the people who are going to end up playing it or might be playing it, what you were involved with that process, the closed beta process, the small feedback process, like what that looked like.
Yeah, so if you played from beta, you'll probably see that obviously the game went through a lot of iterations, specifically with the onboarding. I mean, that's a great example because we talked about that publicly. Yeah. So obviously knowing how a game is when you get it off of Steam or mobile or PC, like they all interact differently, right? So that was a big thing for us to get that right. And then once we were like, hey, this feels really good, we can get people in, they can play, they get rewards. Like it's a good loop for a new player to experience, which is important for the health of the game. Mobile came out, we're like, oh crap, mobile's a totally different beast, right? Like 30 minutes of gameplay might be an eternity on mobile.
That's right.
So that was an iterative process. It always is too. I mean, with a game like this, nothing's ever final. We don't stamp it.
No, of course.
But that beta process was a lot of that. It was a lot of getting that new player experience correct, getting it feel good, again, with the Bethesda net standing up and getting a count system so we can play back and forth. But I think that was really important in the infancy of the game because of the fact we wanted to get people in and have them stick around and play, like you or like anyone else. So, yeah.
What do you hear from people as being the point where they were hooked? I don't know if you have research on this, but I assume you're going to.
So we do. So it's good. Part of the actual beta process, there was a lot of surveys and research that we sent out. We just did a recent round of that, and we posted about it online. So we do look at those things. Yeah. We look at analytics behind the scenes to say, hey, this is good. Maybe this can be a little bit easier. For example, when we were in beta, we saw there was a really steep drop off of one of the missions, actually. And we said, hey, this is not the best onboarding experience. How can we do this? So not only was it making it a little bit easier for someone, but giving them rewards and also just showing them their progress. We said, hey, you know what, on a mobile device, I might not know where I am, and this might be an eternity. So that's how we changed shows you're in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So, yeah, a lot of data behind the scenes, a lot of looking at stuff, and then just feedback. I mean, we're on forums all the time. We interact on Reddit, and if people say, hey, this is really good or this is really bad, it's not crazy for us to send it to Slack and Tyrell and say, hey, what does your data say here? What do we think? Let's have a conversation here.
Yeah, and it's definitely a thing where you see a trend and you're delivering that right away. Like something is not right about this, and we see that stuff even today where we know people have thoughts on things that want to change, and we send that over. But we don't really leave any stone unturned. We're looking at everything that's in there and considering it. And you can do anything, but you just can't do everything. So it makes
there too. It's not just us. Like Direwolf does the same thing where they say, "Hey guys, what do we think about this?" They are on Reddit all the time. They're on the forums. Might not be interacting with people one-to-one, but they're definitely looking at the feedback and the thoughts of the games or what they can do, what they can change.
Yeah. When I met the guys from Direwolf, I remember when we were talking, they would quote Reddit posters by name.
Right, exactly.
And I was just blown away.
Yeah, I mean they are deep-seated in the community. They can do that. They believe in their product, right? Like they understand that it's important for a community behind it, and that's how we've grown this game so far, and that's why they're always reading those forum posts and they're always looking at Reddit.
We were talking to Paul Denman today, and he was just talking about like how he makes sure he's playing the game, live every month, and you see
he's always in the top 100.
Yeah, you see the top
100.
100. He's there every time. So.
Some of my best experiences playing the game have actually been losing games.
Really?
Yeah, I have a couple of times.
He's challenged me to a couple games, and I was like, sure, I'll do this, and then afterwards I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Right. It's just embarrassing.
Well, that brings me actually to one of my questions. So you guys both play the game?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So what has that experience been like, and what do you think of the cards?
So I love playing Archer. The removal's pretty great on green. That's probably why I love it so much. I don't play card games as much as other people, so that was never my forte. It's funny. I but I play a lot of HeroClix. If you're familiar with it, it's a miniatures game. There's a lot of people that I knew who grew up played Magic. Right. So I was never super into card games until I kind of started working here and played other games. Played Hearthstone, played Hex. I got into this big thing when I first started ZeniMax, where we all bought into a bunch of games that were for that stuff and played them. So card games have never been what what I've been super focused on. I was more of like the competitive games or the online games. That's kind of why they asked me to work on the title, because I kind of live in that space and understand that space.
So you can bring a different viewpoint to it. Maybe people super entrenched couldn't.
And I mean, and as far as like the actual like in-depth knowledge of a card game, like Pete has always been there. Pete will always be there and always be part of it. So I mean, looking at it through a different lens of somebody that's like, hey, let's look at this from the competitive aspect of this or the online game aspect of it. And Pete has that unique look of the Magic player, the super competitive player for card games.
It's kind of it's difficult to look at it now, but I mean, it's weird to think that not too long ago, the card game scene and the online game scene were mutually exclusive formats, right? So I think bringing that sort of knowledge in, since the MMO scene predates the online card game scene, like 10 years maybe.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. What about you?
My experience with card games is pretty limited, to be honest. You know, having Pete around is always good because I actually did a stream a couple months ago where he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna teach you," and
it's a good stream.
He's like, "Go to the face," and I'm like, "Don't know what you're talking about, Pete. like you really need to start." Like, I never played Magic. I like you know, Dungeons and Dragons is probably the closest thing for me as a kid, and at some point I quit that because my brother decided he was going to be a dungeon master, and I opened a chest of bees, and all of my like high level characters died, and we punched each other, and I never played Dungeons and Dragons again.
Like our brothers could hang out.
Yeah, and so it's been a learning process. I've been kind of filling in the community role. Obviously, I have a lot of experience with the Bethesda titles over the last few years, but it's a learning process. AJ helps me, Pete helps me, Matt Ferry, our PR director, gives me stuff. But
Nick,
so for
shout out.
and Nick's here in Denver with us too. Really, for me, the favorite cards become the cards where people are playing and reacting, and really happy to see the stuff we're putting in the game. We are also, since my experience in this genre is not where I would like it to be, we are hiring for the full-time Legends community manager because we know we want to have somebody dedicated. I'm, managing a full team and staff, and as much as I love working on it, like, need to get to a point where we've got somebody that can just come in and do the work, and I can do some other work too.
So it sounds like if you guys are in the process of hiring somebody just for that role, this is going to be an exciting year.
Jobs.zenimax.com.
No, I'm good.
No, actually, email the resume to us because we get the recruit.
Oh yeah. Just put our email. Don't put our emails.
Don't put our emails at the bottom, please.
Yeah. I mean, we take this game very seriously, and the community is always looking at, like, are they taking it seriously? What is the next steps we're taking? And content. We're here in Denver right now, meeting and talking about what's coming next in the game. We have stuff coming right around the corner, and I don't know what you call the next corner right around the corner, but we've got stuff.
Block?
Several corners down are being thought.
Yeah, down in the neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, and that goes to what you were saying before in terms of like iteration. Like, the game is always changing, and it's not. Yes, there are some fixes we can do in the short term, but I mean, there is a long-term roadmap for the game and where we want to be, both on content and features, and that's why we're here all the time, just talking about that and syncing on those things.
Well, that's fantastic. So, speaking of your involvement with the Reddit community in particular,
Who?
I would be Reddit. Right?
Okay.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask a few questions that I'm sure are popular on Reddit.
Okay.
Understand
Sure.
You don't like it, so we
No.
can answer as well.
Let's do it.
But the biggest thing that I see people concerned about is the competitive scene for the game. I mean, I was wondering, like, from what you say, it sounds like you have a plan. You're several blocks down. You said, where does the competitive scene look in the future compared to now? Not specifics necessarily, but like, is that something you're plotting for in future blocks?
Yes, absolutely. So when we put up the competitive blog post, we knew that there'd be pushback because some people wanted specifics.
Of course.
And the downfall of that, obviously, is when you give specifics and you don't hit them, people are upset then too. So we are planning, and we're working with multiple groups and multiple agencies. I mean, ESL is a great example, and they've been a great partner. So we're expanding on that. The biggest thing I firmly believe in, and I mean, like I said before, I play a lot of competitive games, watch a lot of competitive games, is the tool set and being able to actually do those type of things. us, right?
Yeah.
Like it's hard for us right now just to say, hey, we're going to set up this 50-person tournament type of thing and not be kind of just strung together, right? So it's making it more seamless, making it so other people can host it, making it so it's not just the ESLs, but Justin Larson wants to do an invitation type of thing, right?
Put some settings in, work on that.
Exactly. So, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So the competitive scene is super important, though. Like, nobody's downplaying that. I mean, we talked about it today. We talk about it probably once a week in terms of where we are and what we want to do with things. So in the meantime, I mean, we understand that the community is helping with those things with the TES Championship Series and other groups, and we've been working with them as well. And we'll continue to work with them in terms of like...
We actually owe a phone call to another group, I think. Probably on Monday we'll be talking about some, community cup type stuff that we need to get into motion.
Yes, and that is beyond just like, hey, we'll promote you on social. There's some other conversations to be had there. But, I mean, we do take it seriously. Like, we look at the competitive health of the game, and we look at other games. And, like I said, I watch a lot of esports, and it's something I love. And I firmly believe that when a game has that foundation and when a game is actually has people playing it and running multiple things, like it's a passion. It's not just us going, we're an esport today. Yeah. That's not how it works. And we want to get there. We're working towards it, and that's why we put that. That's why we put that thread up. Like we owed the transparency. Nobody was hiding behind anything. It was like, hey, we're working on this, and that's also.
And honestly, that article being written, the genesis was really AJ's passion for getting that message out. We knew there'd be some pushback on it, but
and that's why I was going to answer questions.
The transparency and like that was literally, this is the last thing I need to get done before it's Christmas party time.
Cool.
So
and I said to get it out in 2017. I did.
You did it.
I did it. Hey, it was like 4 days before break.
No, I'm not. It's cool. I agree with you totally about esports, right? Like I was just thinking on Sunday there was a tournament, and this is the first time I can remember this happening in Legends for quite a while, actually. People are still talking about the tournament results and like how it went. In the finals, it was Valerie crying CVH.
Yep.
And people are still talking today about the way games went down and plays and stuff, and people are trying those decks. And that's the sort of thing that, like, even when there were tournaments in the past, there hasn't been that much conversation a week later for. And it's interesting to watch it, like, kind of happen. I don't know what it was about the tournament that made it happen, but it's fun to watch, to be a part of, and to experience it.
Yeah, totally agree, and that's why we want to give. We are not in a situation to dictate how people run their tournaments.
Sure. And
that's why it's kind of working with these groups that we'll be working with to say, hey, you know what? We believe in you guys. You guys have done other stuff in the community. Let us help you kind of take that to that next step. And when the community is involved with it, they continue that conversation, like you said. Absolutely. So it's not just us picking out random people to do stuff. It's the people that have already been invested and have played in those tournaments.
That's cool. I don't know if you guys know this. I'm just going to chew my horn here for a second.
Okay.
I won the first Elder Scrolls Championship Series.
I do remember that. I do recall.
With an absolutely awesome deck. So I was curious.
Hey, no shame.
Hey,
no shame.
You're the champion.
Look, it's the only
original, the OG.
It's the only tournament I'm ever going to win.
Yeah.
But I was curious. I just had a couple more questions.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying having you guys here talking about this. When in the development of Legends did you guys specifically come on board, and what are some of the things that you personally advocated for that have impacted the way the game's marketed, or the directions it's taken?
I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I was working with a lot of the coordination of the announce for the E3 Showcase 2015 at the Dolby Theater. Was that the actual announce?
That was the actual announce of the trailer.
Yeah, Pete's sitting in the crowd, like it's already.
Tablet.
It's those E3 showcases are a colossal effort for everyone on our team, year in and year out. So
shout out to events and PR.
Yeah, a lot of that. It was mainly social media preparation to get that ready, but getting that ready alongside Fallout 4 and Doom and Dishonored 2 and managing the stream. So really it was more of this is a huge pillar of our, I would say, maybe the company's biggest day in its history.
Well, that was also the very first time they had done an E3 showcase. We've done it now 3 years in a row, but this is the very first one.
Yeah, like through the years, I would always, people are always excited about E3, and they'd say, "Hey, when's your thing?" And we didn't have a booth. We had a booth, and you came in, you had an appointment, and you saw Rage or you saw Skyrim, but we never had something of that magnitude. So, Legends was a huge pillar of what I consider the biggest day in our company's history to date. Beyond that, I've worked with a few folks that have been doing stuff on the community side, and AJ and Pete, and it still feels like kind of like a baby at this point to me. Like we're making the steps we need to make, but if you look at Elder Scrolls Online, I think it's going to celebrate its 4th anniversary in April, and where that game is now from when it launched on PC in 2014, it's a huge game for us, and it means so much to us, and like we see the progress that game's made, and we feel like Legends is kind of going on a similar track.
You see it recreating that growth.
It's just a huge, every day you see more and more people being excited about the games.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Plus, it's available on more platforms. Just by that nature of being on a phone, you open it up to 4 or 5 times the amount of people that would normally play it on their Mac or on their PC. Cool. So yeah, we're just super excited, and that's why we continue to put effort into the game, because we believe in it. It does see growth, and we think it can go even further.
Fantastic. I would, of course, be remiss if I didn't ask you guys to just spoil the hell out of me for some stuff upcoming. Tell me about what I'm not supposed to know.
What's that? Is that it?
Is this it?
Is it it?
Could be it.
Dude, I did not expect that to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to save this for the end. Do you have I can give this to you at the end. Do you have any other questions?
I'm having trouble thinking clearly now.
Really?
Yeah.
The Reddit community is going to be so mad at you. You asked one Reddit question.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Reddit, right?
They're like, what's in the black?
Yeah, exactly.
I know. What's in the box?
I know.
Okay, so yeah, more so Reddit.
I know you got more questions.
I knew. Jesus, man.
You just didn't expect that to work. That's why you said
I didn't.
that. Exactly.
I just thought it'd be funny. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, like, part of what I really enjoy about the online of playing this game is the online community.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time I've ever been involved in an online community, and like I don't have the same background you guys do being involved in gaming in general. I kind of came at this as an older guy who had a hobby and found one he was really passionate about. And one of the things I've noticed is that with the Legends community, since I joined it, I branched out to other gaming communities. And I always found the Legends community on Reddit to be like overwhelmingly positive when compared to other gaming communities that I've seen and drifted away from because of the hostility. So I'm curious, like, if you have any insight into maybe what it is about the Reddit community specifically that keeps people coming back, and what role, maybe, what your function is in cultivating that positivity.
I think I was the very first person in the company to post on Reddit not in the company, the first person working on Legends. I think I was the first face there, and then
for Legends,
for Legends, yeah. So I think it's being involved with them from the start, right? Like, so the minute we kicked off beta, we were in there, and I was like, yes, we'll take your feedback, or sorry, this is broken. And it's the small things like that, right? So it's always having that constant communication and the conversation with them. Right. I mean, Pete is in there every single day talking to people as well. Yeah. And I think that's different than a lot of other games. I'm not going to say every game doesn't do that, but I think it's the fact that people could see that they helped build this game, and so they're a little bit more invested in it versus somebody that just comes in. And I think Reddit is also growing as well. We say Reddit, we mean forums too. It's just all places where people congregate and talk about the game. But I do think it's from us taking the time, and Matt being in there now, myself and Pete and Maricon and everyone else, to just like have a conversation. Nothing is below me in terms of having a conversation. Like, people, you see a lot of ire on there as well as the great stuff, and I mean, we welcome that conversation because a lot of the ire comes from people being passionate about the game and wanting to hear answers and find things out. So it's kind of getting that root.
And we're equally passionate about it. So sometimes if it's something that we're seeing and it's like, well, that doesn't jive with us either, and then we're kind of in the same like, like fix this, and then working with Direwolf. Exactly.
So my favorite part of Reddit is the shit posting.
Yes.
Just kind of keep 100 with you for a second. Has there been any fantastic examples of hilarious things you saw on Reddit that you had to tell the people involved in
Toby, hands down.
Yeah.
Toby was the best meme.
That's lived for quite a while now.
It is. I think Toby will never be a dead meme.
That
Toby
is
was always good. Something came up recently where I dropped the Toby line, and I think Pete got it and he laughed, but no one else got it. I think it was in a meeting, like a bunch of other Legends people that obviously like sales and whatnot. Like, they're not super ingrained in the community. But he got it and he laughed, and it was worth it.
That's awesome.
Toby was good. I'm trying to think what else is on there.
If it feels good to know that you guys are laughing about our shit posting at the office.
If we can't laugh about it, then we are in the wrong business, I think. We're making games, and I think it's important to keep that in perspective
I can appreciate that.
for both like interacting with the community, when we actually talk to Direwolf or anyone else when we make a game, like we are at the end of the day making a game that we like to play and people love to play too.
So today there was a post of developers journal about the Ring of Magica.
Yep.
On a scale of 1 to 3 charges, how tired you're about hearing about the Ring of Magica?
So I don't think it applies anymore because everybody's happy with the dev diary.
Everybody's happy.
100%.
Yeah.
I only read very briefly a couple things because we were, like I said, we were meeting with Direwolf today. Yeah. Although someone did tag me in a post and they said that they loved it, and I sarcastic. They said solid post, and I was like, "You're welcome."
Oh, you know what? It seemed like everybody was pretty happy. Glad we have this finally resolved. Let's move to the next thing.
Yeah.
And then we were meeting about something. There was something at the bottom, and they were calling you out.
Yeah.
And then the question was like 7 or 8 paragraphs. So
Yeah,
I think
I will look forward to that. And I think it's important to point out to people too, like we read all those things and I answer what I can, but we are also not the developer.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And so, I mean, if someone was asking me a specific question about data or development, and I can't answer that. I don't know. But I do think that's also a good example of what we heard from the community from Reddit and from forums. Like they wanted to hear from the developer. And the developer should have the voice, and they should be able to pick. So Matt and I don't say, hey, you guys are going to talk about this month and talk about that. Like, so they read the forums.
Yeah,
and
that was just
that all came from them. They said, hey, we want to share some of this stuff. We said, cool. Like, we think it'd be great. We think, and again, they didn't do it to stop a conversation because that'll always be there. But they put it out there to be transparent. Say, this is where we're at. These are the things we tried. These are the things that worked, that didn't work, and this is how the game will continue to grow in the future. And we'll look at this. So.
I think it's interesting. A lot of times when we are hamstrung and maybe can't answer, it's usually because of a positive down the road. There's a certain amount of surprise and delight that you want, like our E3 showcase, where you want to be able to say, here's the next thing coming to Legends, here's this. And so you're kind of smiling and looking at it, and you might, say something like, yeah, we'll take that into consideration, and we're thinking like, yeah, we're doing exactly that. And so always keep that in the back of your head, because we might just be doing exactly what you're saying, what you're wanting, and we just can't quite say it.
Because you've been hearing the feedback.
Yes.
And of course, I'm sure you have access to all sorts of like data that tells you what people are feeling.
Yeah.
And if it's about Twitch drops, I'll probably respond to it.
Yeah, that was my next question actually.
Was it really?
Yeah, that's
read your mind. Look at that.
Right. So, I've streamed on Twitch 6 times, so I'm basically now a celebrity of sorts. But
are you Snoop Dogg level?
No, well, I actually play the game, which is a step up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's right.
Jab.
Throw a shade at Snoop Dogg. Sorry, Snoop. But anyway, I really enjoy the experience. But every time I'm streaming, I get beat by the drop channels. Right?
Yep.
The guys who are rebroadcasting all the time. I was wondering if you had any personal opinions about it, or professional opinions, and if it's something that you guys have discussed in the office and what that conversation is like.
Yeah, and we've talked about it a couple times on Reddit that we continuously have open conversations with Twitch, and there are some limitations on their end and our end. Right. I mean, when the Twitch system was conceived, I mean, I brought that up to Pete as kind of like an idea for all the games as well. So we built it for Legends, for Quake, and for everything. Yeah. And so it's going to be built, and it's going to change. Like it was infinite. We were very original in what we offered and how we did that, because it's just how the system worked and the technology worked. But as far as things go with either like a rebroadcast, like that's a constant conversation we have with Twitch. One of the things that we've also been vocal about, I mentioned, is that we are working towards what we're kind of effectively calling like Drops 2.0. So to explain it very simply, right now the Twitch reads information in real time, sends it to the game, and says, hey, these people are watching, and that's it. There's no two-way communication. So part of the Drops 2.0 that will be coming, that we're working on, is kind of rewarding events, right? So if Justin's playing and gets a win, maybe he gives out drops to 5 people. If Justin's recording Justin's playing and opens up a God Pack, maybe he gives it to 30 people, right?
Oh, wow.
So that requires data to be shared 2 ways. Right. And when we started this program, it wasn't possible for Twitch to do that.
It wasn't available.
It wasn't available. Okay. So there are now games that are doing that, and we're kind of learning with them and learning with Twitch. So we understand it's a pain point. We understand it's a learning experience, but at the same time, there are people that are rebroadcasting and also contributing to the community by playing and then rebroadcasting after the fact. So it's a hard thing to manage. It's not something. There's no silver bullet for it, unfortunately. And the last thing we want to do is reprimand people for doing those type of things, because they are, like I said, streaming content, or they are actually doing things, so they may be rebroadcasting it or bringing in people to the game. But there is absolutely an opportunity for specific things we can do in the future, and we're working on the technology side to fix them, and with Twitch.
We have a really great partnership with Twitch, and they were
just there
a couple
last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday, like 8 hour. I was in an 8-hour meeting with Twitch across various things, and I think I actually did a little pound fisting as it came to
and that was absolutely brought
up. Rebroadcasts. It was one of the first things I brought up. It's a pain point. It's something we want to fix. But like Twitch is one of those companies that, or Amazon, I guess, but does all this amazing stuff. And again, I used it before. You can do anything. You can't do everything. You look at Facebook. You look at Twitter. Or somebody like Twitch. They are all. This product is not finished to them, and they're always looking at how can I make it better. And so something like Drops is like, this is a campaign we can move forward and do better. And I know our studios kind of treat what we do in games like that too. Like, you're always going to try things, and sometimes you're going to strike out, and sometimes you're going to get a single, sometimes you're going to get a home run. Drops as a whole, I think, has been a very positive experience for Legends. It's great that we've been kind of at the forefront of doing that with a game, and to your point, like, it's only going to get better.
Yes.
Twitch is listening to us, we're listening to them, we're listening to all the feedback from players.
And we do see growth with direct new user acquisition from Twitch. That is positive. And one of the things that we can address, and we've talked about before, was when we did roll out the system, people considered it more generous than it would be now. Yeah. But we've also added things to the game, such as daily login rewards and things that didn't exist then. So there wasn't a reason to log into the game. So it's a fine balance with both the economy side of things, the Twitch side of things, the in-game, the out-of-game, and how do we get people in there, how do we get them interacting with it. And like Matt said, it's never done. And one of the big things that we're looking forward to is being able to have that full 2.0. And again, there are other games that are doing this now, but Twitch is working with all of them, and some of the situations they had never even heard of. So it's just a new product.
And it can be little things. We were discussing it today that we put the message of the day to remind people to sign up for the ESL tournament.
Yeah, I saw
that seems like a no-brainer, but Bethesda and games as a service, it's something that's been evolving for us, and that's just kind of like a lesson and a step for us. Like, okay, now we are seeing more people participating in that, so we'll look at more stuff. Hopefully have many more messages a day, multi-message a day, so that people have almost a community portal within the game to be better informed about what's happening.
Yeah, and people also understand, like Matt's just kind of alluded to, is like there's a very small subset of those people that leave the game to go look at news on Reddit or forum. Like, we know that, and that's not unique to Legends.
It'd be easy to forget that too.
Yeah, exactly. So how much more of that information can we serve to the player, and TDs and logins and screens and those type of things is what we're working on doing to better the experience inside the game, not requiring it.
I just want to make sure I understand that, so that the too long and delayed version is in the future incentivizing, to some extent, watching live broadcasts.
Correct. Yes.
I appreciate the answer, but that's the one sense.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
TLDR.
That's right. I didn't want to say that because I didn't know. So, I wanted to ask one more question.
All right, one more question, and then we can see what's in here.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
All right. What if it's nothing? What if we trolled you this whole time?
Stupid.
What if it's a picture of Toby? I mean, actually, I should have done that. Why didn't I think of that?
Right.
And then the real envelope comes out.
A picture of Toby would
have to buy two.
A picture of Mike the Liar.
Mike the Liar, yeah. How about just a picture of Pete?
Picture of Pete would be pretty funny.
So fun fact, I'll share this little fun fact. We obviously have like marketing plans for the game. Whenever we present them to anybody, the very last slide is a picture of Pete holding that Argonian statue.
Nice.
And it's a quote from Twitch chat that says, "Make sure to marry someone in life the way someone that you look at, the way that Pete looks at his Argonian statue." It's him like adoring and looking into it. That's what I should have put here.
That's fantastic. The last question I just wanted to ask was, the future of, and I don't know how much you can speak to this, but I think that I've seen, and granted, I'm obviously not the target for Elder Scrolls Legends advertisements because I'm already super entrenched in the game, but I've only seen a couple of Elder Scrolls ads, right, on the internet since I started playing the game. I was wondering, like, what the future of that process looks like, or maybe, you know, what the data you've gotten suggests about its effectiveness and the future of advertising.
Yeah, so we look at a lot of different things when we bring in people from different mediums, be it a Facebook ad, be it a Skype ad, be it just a banner ad. Like, some things work for online games like this, and some games don't. Or some things don't work. But like you mentioned, I mean, in 2018, there's data, and we can very easily say, hey, you know what? We're not going to serve this ad to Justin Larson because Justin's already a fan of this game, and it doesn't make sense. But that's not to say we can't be better. We run a lot of campaigns around like larger things, expansions, stories, things like that. But then there is also what we call an always on. We're trying to bring in people. That's been successful for us. But it is a lot of looking behind the scenes to say, hey, what are the type of people that would like this game? What are the people that not just would like this game, but would stay a long time, right? Like that's who we want to bring in. Is people
spend some money.
Or spend some money is not bad. Bring people in so they can actually play the game and then be involved in the community. And like we know it doesn't make a ton of sense to advertise to this one person that might be like, oh, you know what, I hate card games. Well, I clicked this, but then I'm uninstalling. Like that's not a value one. So it is much more of a pointed approach than a giant wide funnel because it is a card game. Yes, the Elder Scrolls brings in a whole other series of people, and we know that from a lot of the data that we get. But at the same time, we just have to pick and choose those people. But we are running those things all the time, and they might not be traditional banner ads because they don't always work, and we might try some other things. But we have been running stuff, and we will continue to do so, and we'll continue to do more.
That was perfect. I didn't know if you were like trying to figure out if we were going to do a TV ad with Kate Upton or something like that.
No, but if you do a TV ad,
who do you want?
Who do you want?
I mean, that's a good question. I would like to see myself in this ad.
All right.
Put me in a
Star power? Only if you
on a horse, on fire.
Yeah, dude, I would ride a flaming horse.
All right.
That'd be pretty good. That'd be pretty good.
I got the body for it.
All right.
So,
Easter egg.
Speaking of, you talked about hyping up big things to come,
Yes.
advertising for things to come.
Yes.
I'd like to know what's in the school.
All right.
Thank you. I had a brief moment where I was like, I don't think I can open this.
So,
Yeah.
we wanted to give you a first idea of what this could possibly be. You'll have to stay tuned. You can show it to the camera.
You can put that on the Twitter.
You can put it on the Twitter
I will
machine.
tweet this out tonight.
You can tweet this out and say, hey, they gave this to me. I have no idea what this is.
Okay.
But stay tuned. And you will be finding out very, very, very soon.
Very soon.
Very soon, I think.
Very soon?
Yeah. So this is just the start in terms of stuff for 2018. There's a lot that we are planning. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
A lot that's coming out. So we're super excited about it. This is kind of going to kick that off. But we think it'll be good. We think it'll be really well received by the community.
Wow.
Yeah, keep an eye out for more info very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you guys both very much for joining me. Thanks for coming to my beautiful city.
Yeah, it's been
I
awesome.
love Denver. It's nice.
And in all honesty, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
Cool.
Thanks for having us. Thank you for everything you do for the game.
Thanks to everyone else watching.
And everyone else watching as well. And Sandra, the unsung hero behind the camera. Sandra.
Cheers.